Chapter 9. Lily's Big News. The crisp, cool air of autumn had settled over the neighborhood like a cozy blanket, painting the once vibrant green leaves in a breathtaking array of golds, oranges, and reds. Arthur and Lily walked side by side down the quiet street, their footsteps crunching softly on the fallen leaves that carpeted the sidewalk. "I can't believe how much has changed in just 1 year," Lily mused, her eyes taking in the familiar houses and yards with a newfound sense of appreciation. "This time last fall, I barely knew my neighbors' names. And now, thanks to you and the gardening club, I feel like I'm part of a real community." Arthur smiled, his own heart swelling with gratitude and pride. "It's amazing what a little bit of dirt and some hard work can do," he agreed, his gaze drifting to the gardens that now graced nearly every yard on the block. "But it's not just the plants that have grown. I've watched so many people blossom and thrive, finding new passions and purpose in their lives." Lily nodded, her face thoughtful. "Speaking of new passions," she began, her voice taking on a slightly hesitant tone, "there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about, Arthur." "Something big?" Arthur turned to her, his brow furrowing with concern. "Of course, Lily. You know you can always come to me with anything." Lily took a deep breath, her hands twisting nervously in front of her. "I've been thinking a lot lately about my future and what I want to do with my life. And I've realized that, as much as I love being a nurse, there's something else that I'm really passionate about." She paused, her eyes searching Arthur's face for a reaction. "I want to go back to school, Arthur, to study environmental science and learn more about how we can protect and preserve the natural world around us." For a moment, Arthur was silent, his mind racing with a mix of emotions. Pride, joy, and a bittersweet sense of impending change swirled together in his heart, leaving him momentarily speechless. But as he looked into Lily's eyes, shining with a newfound sense of purpose and determination, he knew that there was only one thing he could say. "Lily," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "that is incredible news. I am so proud of you, and so excited to see where this new path will take you." Lily's face broke into a relieved smile, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you, Arthur," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You've been such an amazing mentor and friend, and I just wanted you to know how much you've changed my life." Arthur felt his own eyes stinging with tears, his heart overflowing with love and gratitude for the incredible woman standing before him. "You've changed my life too, Lily," he said softly, reaching out to take her hand in his own. "More than you could ever know." For a long moment, they stood there, hand in hand, the autumn breeze swirling around them like a gentle embrace. And in that moment, Arthur knew that, no matter what changes lay ahead, the bonds of friendship and community that they had forged would endure, as strong and resilient as the roots of the gardens they had grown together. As they made their way to the community center for the weekly gardening club meeting, Arthur couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation and excitement in the air. The club had become such an integral part of their lives, a source of joy, purpose, and connection that had transformed the entire neighborhood. But as they entered the room and took their seats among the familiar faces of their fellow gardeners, Arthur could sense that something was different. There was a buzz of energy and excitement, a feeling that something big was about to happen. And then, as if on cue, Lily stood up, her face alight with a mix of nervousness and exhilaration. "Everyone," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I have some news that I wanted to share with all of you." The room fell silent, every eye trained on Lily as she took a deep breath and continued. "As many of you know, Being a part of this club has been an incredible experience for me. It's given me a sense of purpose and belonging that I never knew I was missing." She paused, her eyes sweeping over the faces of her friends and neighbors, each one etched with love and support. "And it's because of that experience, because of all of you, that I've decided to make a big change in my life." Arthur felt his heart swell with pride as Lily shared her news, her voice growing stronger and more confident with each word. "I've decided to go back to school, to pursue a degree in environmental science. I want to learn more about how we can protect and preserve the natural world around us, and how we can inspire others to do the same." For a moment, the room was silent, the weight of Lily's announcement hanging in the air like a tangible presence. And then, as if a dam had burst, the room erupted in cheers and applause, as every member of the club leapt to their feet to embrace Lily and offer their congratulations. Arthur watched as Sophie and Rashid enveloped Lily in a warm hug, their faces beaming with pride and joy. He saw Jake and Ava high-fiving each other, their eyes shining with excitement at the prospect of having a real-life scientist in their midst. And he saw the tears of happiness streaming down Evelyn's face, her weathered hands clasped together in a silent prayer of gratitude. As the initial excitement began to die down and the club members returned to their seats, Arthur found himself lost in thought, his mind whirling with the implications of Lily's announcement. He knew that her decision would mean big changes for the club, for the community, and for his own life. Lily had become such an integral part of his world, a constant presence and source of support that he couldn't imagine living without. But even as he felt a twinge of sadness at the thought of her leaving, he knew that this was the right path for her. Lily had always had a spark of curiosity and passion that had been waiting to be ignited, and now, thanks to the gardening club and the community they had built together, that spark had become a blazing fire. As the meeting drew to a close and the club members began to disperse, Arthur found himself seeking out Lily, his heart full of words that he needed to say. "Lily," he began, his voice soft and filled with emotion, "I just wanted to tell you how incredibly proud I am of you. What you're doing, the path you're choosing to take, it's a brave and beautiful thing." Lily's eyes shone with tears, her face glowing with a mix of gratitude and love. "Thank you, Arthur," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You've been my rock, my guiding light, and I will never forget the impact you've had on my life." Arthur felt his own tears threatening to fall, his heart overflowing with the depth of his love and admiration for the incredible woman standing before him. "You've had just as much of an impact on my life, Lily," he said softly, reaching out to take her hands in his own. "You've shown me what it means to be a true friend, a true leader, and a true force for good in this world." For a long moment, they stood there, hands clasped and eyes locked, the weight of their shared journey hanging in the air between them. And then, with a final squeeze of their hands and a tearful smile, they parted ways, each knowing that, no matter what the future held, they would always have the love and support of the community they had built together. As the weeks passed and the autumn leaves began to fall in earnest, Arthur found himself grappling with a sense of impending change and uncertainty. The gardening club had become such a central part of his life, a source of purpose and connection that had helped him to heal and grow in the wake of his wife's passing. But now, with Lily preparing to embark on a new chapter in her life and the club facing the prospect of new leadership and direction, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease and apprehension. He knew that change was a natural and necessary part of life, that the seasons of the heart were just as inevitable as the changing of the leaves. But knowing that didn't make it any easier to face the prospect of letting go. of entrusting the future of the club and the community to someone else's hands. As he sat in his garden one evening, the golden light of the setting sun casting long shadows across the earth, he found himself lost in thought, his mind turning over the events of the past year like a well-worn stone. He thought of the first tentative meetings of the club, of the way that Lily's enthusiasm and determination had helped to spark a fire in the hearts of their neighbors. He thought of the challenges they had faced together, of the way that the community had banded together to weather the storms of drought and heat and uncertainty. And he thought of the incredible growth and transformation that had taken place, not just in the gardens that now thrive throughout the neighborhood, but in the hearts and minds of the people who attended them. As he sat there, lost in his memories and his musings, he heard a soft knock at the gate, followed by the sound of familiar footsteps on the gravel path. He looked up to see Sophie and Rashid standing before him, their faces etched with a mix of excitement and nervous energy. "Arthur," Sophie began, her voice trembling slightly, "we have something we wanted to talk to you about. Something that we think could be really special for the club and the community." Arthur felt a flicker of curiosity and apprehension as he gestured for them to sit down, his mind already racing with possibilities. "We've been thinking a lot about Lily's announcement," Rashid continued, his voice steady and clear, "about how much she's meant to the club and how much her leadership and vision have helped to shape who we are and what we do." Sophie nodded, her eyes shining with emotion. "And we realize that, as much as we're going to miss her, this is also an opportunity for us to honor her legacy and celebrate all that she's accomplished." Arthur felt his heart swell with a mix of pride and gratitude, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. "That's a beautiful idea," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "What did you have in mind?" Sophie and Rashid exchanged a glance, their faces breaking into matching grins. "A surprise party," they said in unison, their voices ringing with excitement. "A chance for the whole community to come together and show Lily how much she means to us, and to celebrate the incredible impact that she and the club have had on all of our lives." Arthur felt a rush of excitement and joy at the idea, his mind already spinning with possibilities. "That's perfect," he said, his face splitting into a wide grin. "Let's do it. Let's give Lily the send-off she deserves, and let's show the world what this community is really made of." Over the next few weeks, the neighborhood buzzed with a sense of excitement and anticipation, as word of the surprise party spread like wildfire. Everyone wanted to be a part of the celebration, to contribute in their own small way to honoring Lily and the incredible legacy she had built. Sophie and Rashid took the lead in organizing the event, their natural charisma and leadership skills shining through as they rallied the troops and delegated tasks with ease. Jake and Ava volunteered to create a special video montage of Lily's time with the club, while Evelyn and Luis worked on putting together a scrapbook filled with photos and memories from the past year. Even little Max got in on the action, insisting on making a special sign to hang at the entrance of the community center, his childish scrawl proclaiming, "We love you, Miss Lily," in bright, bold letters. As the day of the party approached, Arthur found himself filled with a sense of bittersweet excitement, his heart torn between the joy of celebrating Lily's achievements and the sadness of saying goodbye to such an integral part of his life. But as he walked into the community center on the day of the party, his breath caught in his throat at the sight before him. The room had been transformed into a veritable garden of delights, with flowers and greenery spilling from every surface and twinkling lights casting a warm, inviting glow. And there, at the center of it all, stood Lily, her face alight with a mix of surprise and joy as she took in the scene before her. "Surprise!" the crowd shouted in unison, their voices ringing out with love and appreciation. "We love you, Lily." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she looked around the room, taking in the faces of the people who had become her family, her community, her heart. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me." As the party got underway, the room filled with laughter and chatter, as friends and neighbors mingled and shared stories of the incredible impact that Lily and the club had had on their lives. There were tales of first harvests and hard-won battles against pests and disease, of the way that the simple act of tending a garden had brought people together in ways they never could have imagined. And through it all, there was a sense of deep, abiding love and gratitude, a recognition of the incredible gift that Lily had given to the community and the way that her vision and leadership had helped to transform not just the neighborhood, but the lives of everyone in it. As the evening began to wind down and the guests started to trickle out, Arthur found himself seeking out Lily once more, his heart full of words that he needed to say. "Lily," he began, his voice soft and filled with emotion, "I just wanted to tell you how much you mean to me, to all of us. What you've done here, the community you've helped to build. It's a legacy that will live on long after you've gone." Lily's eyes shone with tears, her face glowing with a mix of love and gratitude. "I couldn't have done any of it without you, Arthur," she said softly, reaching out to take his hand in her own. "You've been my mentor, my friend, my family, and I will always be grateful for the way that you've helped me to grow and to find my purpose in this world." For a long moment, they stood there, hand in hand, their hearts full of the love and connection that had brought them together. And then, with a final embrace and a tearful smile, they parted ways, each knowing that, no matter what the future held, they would always have the love and support of the community they had built together. As the last of the guests departed and the community center fell silent once more, Arthur found himself alone in the garden, his heart full of a bittersweet mix of joy and sadness. He knew that Lily's departure would leave a void in his life, a space that could never quite be filled in the same way. But he also knew that her legacy would live on, that the seed she had planted would continue to grow and thrive long after she had gone. And as he looked out over the garden that had started it all, the place where he had first found solace and purpose in the wake of his own loss, he knew that he had been given an incredible gift. The gift of community, of connection, of the knowledge that, no matter what challenges life might bring, there would always be people who loved and supported him, who believed in the power of growth and renewal. With a smile on his face and a sense of peace in his heart, Arthur bent down to pick up a small, brown seed pod that had fallen from one of the plants. He held it up to the light, marveling at the way that something so small and unassuming could hold such incredible potential. And then, with a deep breath and a sense of purpose, he tucked the seed into his pocket, a reminder of the growth and possibility that lay ahead. He knew that the coming months and years would bring their own challenges and changes, that the club and the community would need to adapt and evolve in order to thrive. But he also knew that they had the strength and the resilience to weather any storm, to plant new seeds and watch them grow into something beautiful and enduring. With a final glance around the garden, Arthur turned and made his way back inside, his heart full of gratitude and hope for the future that lay ahead. He knew that Lily's departure was not an ending, but a new beginning, a chance for the club and the community to grow and flourish in new and exciting ways. And he knew that, no matter what the future held, he would always have the love and support of the incredible people who had become his family, his heart, his home. With a smile on his face and a song in his heart, Arthur closed the door behind him, ready to face whatever challenges and adventures lay ahead. He had planted the seeds of change, and now it was time to watch them grow, to tend and nurture them with all the love and care he could muster. And he knew that, in the end, the harvest would be more beautiful and abundant than he ever could have imagined, a testament to the incredible power of community, connection, and the unbreakable bonds of friendship that had been forged in the rich soil of their shared passion. As Arthur made his way home that evening, he couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. Just a year ago, he had been a man adrift, searching for purpose and meaning in the wake of his wife's passing. But now, as he looked back on all that had transpired, he realized that he had found something far greater than he ever could have imagined. He had found a community, a family, a sense of belonging that had filled the empty spaces in his heart and given him a reason to wake up each morning with a smile on his face and a song in his heart. And he knew that, no matter what challenges the future might bring, he would always have the love and support of the incredible people who had become such an integral part of his life. As he stepped through the front door of his home, Arthur paused for a moment, his hand resting on the smooth wood of the frame. He closed his eyes, breathing in the familiar sense of home, feeling the warmth and comfort of the life he had built wash over him like a gentle wave. And then, with a smile on his face and a heart full of gratitude, he stepped inside, ready to embrace whatever new adventures and opportunities the future had in store. For he knew that, in the end, the true harvest of his life would not be measured in the fruits and vegetables he had grown, but in the love and connection he had cultivated, the lives he had touched, and the indelible mark he had left on the world around him. And that, he knew, was a legacy that would endure long after the last leaf had fallen and the final seed had been sown, a testament to the incredible power of the human spirit to grow, to thrive, and to make the world a little bit brighter, one garden at a time. Chapter 10. Planting New Seeds. The winter's first snow had fallen overnight, blanketing the neighborhood in a serene layer of white. As Arthur sat by the fireplace, cradling a steaming mug of tea, he couldn't help but marvel at the transformation that had taken place, both outside his window and within his own heart. Just a year ago, he had been a man adrift, searching for purpose and meaning in the wake of his wife's passing. But now, as he reflected on the events of the past few months, he realized that he had found something far greater than he ever could have imagined. He had found a community, a family, a sense of belonging that had filled the empty spaces in his heart and given him a reason to wake up each morning with a smile on his face and a song in his heart. As he sipped his tea, his mind drifted to the garden club, to the incredible people who had become such an integral part of his life. He thought of Lily, of the way her eyes had sparkled with pride and determination as she shared her plans for the future. He thought of Sophie and Rashid, of the way they had rallied the troops to give Lily the send-off she deserved. And he thought of all the others, Jake and Ava, Evelyn and Luis, Max and all the children who had found joy and wonder in the simple act of planting a seed and watching it grow. With a contented sigh, Arthur set down his mug and made his way to the kitchen, where a stack of seed catalogs awaited his perusal. It was time to start planning for the spring, to dream of the possibilities that lay ahead. As he flipped through the glossy pages, his eyes wide with wonder at the array of vegetables and flowers on offer, he couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation building in his chest. This was the time of year when anything seemed possible, when the promise of new life and new beginnings hung in the air like a tantalizing whisper. He was so engrossed in his planning that he almost didn't hear the knock at the door, the sound muffled by the thick blanket of snow that covered the front stoop. With a curious frown, he set down the catalog and made his way to the entryway, wondering who could be calling at such an early hour. As he opened the door, he felt his heart stop in his chest, his breath catching in his throat at the sight of the man standing before him. It was his son, Michael, his face etched with a mix of nervousness and hopeful anticipation. "Dad," Michael said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "I know it's been a long time, and I know I haven't been the best son, but I was hoping we could talk." For a long moment, Arthur stood there, his mind reeling with a mix of shock and confusion. He hadn't seen or spoken to Michael in years, not since the day his son had stormed out of the house in a fit of anger and resentment, vowing never to return. But as he looked into Michael's eyes, he saw something there that he hadn't seen in a long time. A glimmer of vulnerability, a hint of the little boy who had once looked up to him with such love and admiration. With a shaky breath, Arthur stepped aside, gesturing for Michael to come in from the cold. "Of course," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Come in, son. Let's talk." As Michael stepped over the threshold, stomping the snow from his boots, Arthur felt a rush of emotions washing over him. Fear, hope, uncertainty, and a deep, aching love that had never truly faded, no matter how much time and distance had come between them. They settled in the living room, the crackling fire casting a warm glow over the room as they sat in awkward silence, neither quite sure where to begin. But as the minutes ticked by and the tea grew cold in their mugs, Arthur found himself speaking, his voice soft and hesitant at first, but growing stronger with each passing moment. He told Michael about the garden club, about the incredible community that had grown up around him in the wake of his retirement and Margaret's passing. He told him about Lily and Max, about Sophie and Rashid and all the others who had become like family to him, filling his days with laughter and purpose and love. And as he spoke, he saw something shifting in Michael's eyes, a glimmer of understanding and empathy that had been absent for so long. His son leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees as he listened intently, nodding along with each story and anecdote. "Dad," Michael said at last, his voice thick with emotion, "I had no idea. I knew you were always into gardening, but I never realized how much it meant to you, how much it had changed your life." Arthur felt a lump forming in his throat, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. "It's more than just gardening, son," he said softly, reaching out to place a hand on Michael's knee. "It's about community, about connection, about finding a way to make the world a little bit brighter, one seed at a time." Michael nodded, his own eyes glistening with tears. "I want to be a part of that, Dad," he said, his voice trembling with sincerity. "I want to be a part of your life again, to make up for all the time we've lost. And I want to learn from you, to see the world through your eyes and maybe even plant a few seeds of my own." Arthur felt his heart swell with love and gratitude, a warmth spreading through his chest like the first rays of spring sunshine after a long, cold winter. "I would like that very much, Michael," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Very much indeed." As the two men embraced, the years of hurt and misunderstanding melting away in the warmth of the moment, Arthur knew that he had been given a precious gift, the chance to reconnect with his son, to build a new relationship based on love, understanding, and a shared passion for the earth and all its wonders. Over the next few weeks, as the snow began to melt and the first tentative shoots of green began to peek through the thawing ground, Arthur and Michael worked side by side in the garden, their hands busy with the tasks of preparing beds and starting seeds, but their hearts and minds focused on the deeper work of healing and reconnection. They talked as they worked, sharing stories and memories, laughter and tears. Arthur told Michael about his childhood on the farm, about the way his grandfather had taught him to read the signs of the seasons and to trust in the resilience of the earth. Michael, in turn, shared his own struggles and triumphs, his dreams for the future and his hopes for a life filled with meaning and purpose. And as they worked and talked, Arthur could feel the seeds of a new relationship taking root, the tender shoots of love and understanding pushing their way through the hard-packed soil of the past, reaching for the sun and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. When the day of the Garden Club's winter gathering arrived, Arthur and Michael walked side by side through the snow-covered streets, their breath puffing out in frosty clouds as they made their way to the community center. Inside, the room was warm and inviting, the air filled with the scent of hot cocoa and the happy chatter of friends and neighbors. Sophie and Rashid were there, their faces alight with excitement as they showed off the new seed packets they had designed, each one emblazoned with the logo of the Garden Club and the words, "Planting Seeds of Hope." Lily was there too, her eyes shining with pride as she shared stories of her first semester at college, the way her professors had praised her passion and dedication to environmental science. And Max was by her side, his small hand clutching a packet of sunflower seeds, his face glowing with the anticipation of the summer blooms to come. As Arthur made his way through the room, greeting each member of the club with a warm hug and a heartfelt word of thanks, he could feel the love and support that surrounded him, the incredible network of friends and neighbors who had become his family in every sense of the word. And when the time came to hand out the seed packets, each one filled with the promise of new life and new beginnings, Arthur felt a lump forming in his throat, his eyes stinging with tears of gratitude and joy. "My friends," he said, his voice trembling with emotion as he held up a packet of his own, the seeds within rattling softly in their paper prison. "This has been an incredible year, a year of growth and change and discovery. And none of it would have been possible without each and every one of you." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the people he had come to love so dearly. "These seeds," he continued, his voice growing stronger with each word, "are more than just a promise of the fruits and flowers to come. They are a symbol of the incredible power of community, of the way that we can come together to create something beautiful and enduring, no matter what challenges we may face." As he spoke, Arthur could feel the energy in the room shifting, the air crackling with a sense of purpose and possibility. And when he finished, the room erupted in applause, the sound washing over him like a wave of love and gratitude. As the gathering began to wind down and the guests started to trickle out into the snowy night, Arthur found himself seeking out Lily once more, his heart full of words that needed to be said. "Lily," he began, his voice soft and filled with emotion, "I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you, and how grateful I am for everything you've brought to my life. You've shown me what it means to be a true friend, a true leader, and a true force for good in this world." Lily's eyes shone with tears, her smile trembling with the weight of her own emotions. "I couldn't have done any of it without you, Arthur," she said softly, reaching out to take his hand in her own. "You've been my mentor, my guide, my family in every way that matters, and I will never forget the impact you've had on my life." For a long moment, they stood there, hand in hand, their hearts full of the love and gratitude that had brought them together. And then, with a final embrace and a promise to stay in touch, they parted ways, each ready to face the future with newfound strength and purpose. As Arthur and Michael made their way back home through the quiet streets, the snow crunching softly beneath their feet, Arthur couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. He thought of the seeds he had planted, both literal and metaphorical, and the incredible harvest of love and connection that had grown from them. He thought of the challenges he had faced, the obstacles he had overcome, and the way that each one had only served to make him stronger, more resilient, more alive. And he thought of the future, of the incredible possibilities that lay ahead, the seeds of hope and potential that were even now lying dormant beneath the frozen ground, waiting for the warmth of spring to coax them into the light. As they turned the corner onto their street, Arthur paused for a moment, his eyes drawn to a small, green shoot poking up through the snow, its tender leaves unfurling in the pale winter light. He knelt down, brushing the snow away with a gentle hand, marveling at the way that life always found a way to persist, to thrive, no matter how harsh the conditions might seem. "You see that, Michael?" he said softly, his voice filled with wonder and awe. "That's the power of a seed, the incredible resilience of the earth itself. No matter how dark and cold the winter may be, there's always the promise of spring, the hope of new beginnings and new growth." Michael knelt down beside him, his own eyes wide with amazement as he reached out to touch the delicate leaves. "It's incredible," he breathed, his voice filled with the same sense of reverence and joy. "I never really understood it before, the way that something so small and fragile could be so strong, so full of life." Arthur smiled, his heart swelling with love and pride. "That's the beauty of it, son," he said softly, rising to his feet and reaching out to help Michael up. "That's the lesson that the garden has taught me, the truth that I want to pass on to you and to everyone I love." As they walked the last few steps to their front door, Arthur felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over him, a deep knowing that he was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. He had planted the seeds of change, of hope and love and connection. And now, as he stepped into the warmth and light of his home, he knew that it was time to watch them grow, to tend and nurture them with all the care and dedication he could muster. For he knew that, in the end, the true harvest of his life would be measured not in the fruits and flowers that he had grown, but in the love and light that he had shared, the lives he had touched, and the incredible, unshakable power of the human spirit to rise up and thrive, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And that, he knew, was a legacy that would endure long after the last snow had melted and the final seed had been sown, a testament to the incredible power of one small person to change the world, one garden at a time. Chapter 11. Signs of Spring. The first hints of spring were beginning to appear in the neighborhood, like tiny green shoots pushing their way through the thawing soil. The snow that had blanketed the lawns and gardens for months was slowly receding, revealing the first tender crocuses and daffodils that had been waiting patiently beneath the frozen earth. As Arthur stepped out onto his back porch one morning, he couldn't help but breathe in deeply, savoring the crisp, invigorating air that seemed to buzz with the promise of new beginnings. The winter had been long and hard, but now, as he looked out over his backyard, he could see the first signs of life returning, the tiny buds on the trees and shrubs swelling with the promise of leaves and flowers to come. With a smile on his face and a spring in his step, Arthur made his way down to the garden, his mind already spinning with plans and possibilities for the coming season. There was so much to do, so many seeds to plant and beds to prepare, but he couldn't wait to get started, to feel the warm earth beneath his fingers and watch the miracle of growth unfold once again. As he knelt down beside the first bed, his hands already reaching for the tools he had laid out the night before, Arthur heard a familiar voice calling out to him from the other side of the fence. "Arthur, you're out early this morning." He looked up to see Lily's smiling face peeking over the top of the fence, her eyes sparkling with the same excitement and anticipation that he felt thrumming through his own veins. "I couldn't help myself," he called back, grinning from ear to ear. "The garden was calling to me, begging me to come out and play." Lily laughed, the sound ringing out clear and joyful in the still morning air. "I know what you mean," she said, her own hands already busy pulling weeds from the raised beds that Arthur had helped her build the previous summer. "I've been counting down the days until I could get back out here and start planting again." As they worked side by side, chatting and laughing and sharing stories of the winter months, Arthur couldn't help but marvel at the incredible community that had grown up around him, the friendships that had taken root and blossomed like the flowers in his garden. It seemed like only yesterday that he had been a man adrift, searching for purpose and meaning in the wake of his wife's passing. But now, as he looked around at the familiar faces of his neighbors, each one busy with their own patches of earth and their own dreams for the future, he knew that he had found something far greater than he ever could have imagined. He had found a family, a sense of belonging that went beyond mere proximity or shared interests. These were people who had become a part of his life in ways both big and small, who had supported him through the darkest of times and celebrated with him in the brightest of moments. And at the heart of it all was the garden, the tiny patch of earth that had started it all, that had given them a common language and a shared purpose, a way to connect with each other and with the world around them in a way that was both simple and profound. As the morning wore on and the sun began to climb higher in the sky, Arthur and Lily made their way inside, their hands dirty and their hearts full. It was time for the first official meeting of the gardening club, the kickoff to a new season of growth and discovery and shared adventure. As they entered the community center, they were greeted by a buzz of excitement and energy, the room filled with familiar faces and new ones alike. There were the regulars, of course, Sophie and Louise, Evelyn and Rashid, Jake and Ava, but there were also a few surprises, like the elderly woman who had just moved in down the street and the young couple who had recently bought the house on the corner. And there, in the middle of it all, was a face that Arthur had never expected to see again, Lily's mother, who had moved away years ago after a painful divorce and had rarely been in touch since. "Mom!" Lily cried out, her face splitting into a wide grin as she rushed forward to embrace the older woman. "What are you doing here? I had no idea you were coming." Her mother laughed, returning the hug with equal fervor. "I wanted to surprise you," she said, her eyes misty with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot lately about family, about the things that really matter in life. And I realized that I didn't want to miss out on any more of your life or Max's. So I decided to move back to the neighborhood to be closer to the people I love." Lily's eyes widened with shock and joy, her hands flying to her mouth as she processed the news. "You're moving back? For good? Oh, Mom, that's incredible. I can't believe it." As the two women embraced again, their tears mingling with their laughter, Arthur felt a lump forming in his own throat, his heart swelling with happiness for his dear friend and her family. It was a reminder, he thought, of the incredible power of love and connection, of the way that even the most broken of relationships could be mended with time and patience and an open heart. As the meeting got underway and the club members began to share their plans and dreams for the coming season, Arthur found himself lost in thought, his mind drifting back to the early days of the garden, to the first tentative shoots of green that had pushed their way through the soil and reached for the sun. He thought of the way that those tiny seedlings had grown and flourished, the way that they had weathered storms and droughts and all manner of challenges, only to emerge stronger and more beautiful on the other side. And he thought of the way that the same could be said for the people in this room, for the incredible community that had grown up around him like a garden in full bloom. They had all faced their own struggles and setbacks, their own moments of doubt and fear and uncertainty. But through it all, they had had each other, a network of support and encouragement that had helped them to keep going, to keep growing, no matter what life threw their way. As he listened to the excited chatter of his friends and neighbors, their voices rising and falling like the chirping of birds in the springtime air, Arthur felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over him, a deep knowing that he was exactly where he was meant to be. This was his garden, his community, his family, and no matter what the future might hold, he knew that he would always have a place here, a home among the flowers and the vegetables and the incredible people who had become such an integral part of his life. With a smile on his face and a heart full of gratitude, Arthur turned his attention back to the meeting, ready to dive in and start planning for the incredible season that lay ahead. There was work to be done, seeds to be planted and nurtured and tended with loving care. But he knew that, together, they could accomplish anything, that they could grow something truly beautiful and enduring, one tiny green shoot at a time. As the meeting began to wind down and the club members started to disperse, chattering excitedly about the projects and plans they had hatched together, Arthur found himself drawn to a quiet corner of the room, where Lily was deep in conversation with her mother. He watched as the two women leaned in close, their heads bent together like conspirators, their faces alight with a mix of joy and tenderness that made his heart ache with a bittersweet kind of happiness. It was a reminder, he thought, of the incredible resilience of the human spirit, of the way that even the most broken of bonds could be mended with time and patience and an open heart. And it was a testament to the power of the garden, to the way that the simple act of planting a seed and watching it grow could be a catalyst for so much more than just a bountiful harvest. It could be a way to heal old wounds, to forge new connections, to build something beautiful and enduring out of the broken pieces of the past. As he watched Lily and her mother embrace once more, their eyes shining with tears of happiness and reconciliation, Arthur felt a lump forming in his own throat, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude for the incredible woman who had become such an important part of his life. She had come so far, he thought, from the struggling single mother he had first met all those months ago, to the confident and capable leader she had become, both in the garden and in her own life. And he knew that, in many ways, he had her to thank for the incredible journey he had been on, for the way that she had helped him to rediscover his own sense of purpose and meaning in the wake of his own loss and grief. With a final glance at the two women, their heads bent together in quiet conversation, Arthur slipped out of the room and made his way back to his own little corner of the world, his mind already spinning with plans and possibilities for the season ahead. There was still so much to do, so many seeds to plant and nurture and tend, but he knew that, with the help of his friends and neighbors, with the love and support of the incredible community that had grown up around him, anything was possible. And so, with a spring in his step and a song in his heart, Arthur set to work, his hands already reaching for the tools and the seeds that would help him to coax new life from the earth once more. It was a labor of love, a way to honor the memory of his beloved Margaret and to create something beautiful and enduring in the world, something that would live on long after he was gone. And as he worked, he could feel the warmth of the sun on his face and the rich, loamy scent of the soil filling his nostrils, the sounds of birdsong and children's laughter drifting on the breeze. This was his garden, his little piece of paradise in the midst of the city. And no matter what challenges the future might bring, he knew that he would always have this place, this incredible community of friends and neighbors who had become like family to him. With a contented sigh, Arthur sat back on his heels, surveying the neat rows of seedlings that stretched out before him like a promise of things to come. It was going to be an incredible season, he thought, full of growth and discovery and shared joy. And he couldn't wait to see what wonders the garden had in store, what incredible stories would unfold in the months and years ahead. But for now, he was content to simply be here, in this moment, surrounded by the people and the plants he loved, doing the work that brought him so much peace and purpose and fulfillment. And as he breathed in the sweet, earthy scent of the garden, he knew that, no matter what the future might hold, he was exactly where he was meant to be. The days turned into weeks, and the garden began to come alive with the first tender shoots of green, the delicate unfurling of leaves and the soft, sweet scent of blossoms on the breeze. And as the club members watched their seedlings grow and thrive, their own lives began to blossom and flourish in ways they never could have imagined. For Sophie and Luis, the arrival of their new baby girl was a joyous occasion, a celebration of new life and new beginnings that brought the whole neighborhood together in a flurry of excitement and anticipation. As Arthur cradled the tiny bundle in his arms, marveling at the perfect bow of her lips and the downy softness of her cheeks, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the miracle of it all. This was what the garden was all about, he thought, the endless cycle of birth and growth and renewal that made the world go round. And as he watched the new parents beam with pride and happiness, their faces alight with the glow of love and joy, he knew that the garden had given them more than just a bountiful harvest. It had given them a sense of connection and community, a way to celebrate the incredible gift of life and to share in the wonder and the beauty of the world around them. For Lily, the garden had been a catalyst for a different kind of growth, a way to rediscover her own strength and resilience in the face of adversity and challenge. As she stood before the community center, her voice ringing out clear and strong as she shared her story of triumph and transformation, Arthur felt a lump forming in his throat, his heart swelling with pride and admiration for the incredible woman she had become. She spoke of the struggles she had faced as a single mother, the way she had put her own dreams and desires on hold in order to provide for her son and keep their little family afloat. But she also spoke of the way that the garden had given her a sense of purpose and meaning, a way to connect with something bigger than herself, and to find the strength and the courage to pursue her own passions and goals. And as she shared her plans for the future, her eyes shining with excitement and determination, Arthur knew that she was destined for great things, that the seed she had planted in the garden and in her own life would continue to grow and flourish for years to come. For Jake, the garden had been a way to find his own voice, to rediscover the joy and the passion that had been missing from his life for so long. As he worked side by side with Arthur and the other club members, his hands busy with the tasks of planting and pruning and tending, he could feel the weight of his anxiety and self-doubt beginning to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose and belonging that he had never known before. And as he began to write about his experiences in the garden, his words flowing out of him like water from a spring, he knew that he had found his calling, his way to make a difference in the world and to share the incredible beauty and wisdom of the natural world with others. As the season wore on and the garden continued to thrive, Arthur found himself marveling at the incredible tapestry of life and growth that had sprung up around him. The way that each member of the club had found their own unique path to happiness and fulfillment through the simple act of planting a seed. And as he watched them work and laugh and share in the bounty of the harvest, he knew that the garden had given them all more than just fresh fruits and vegetables. It had given them a sense of connection and community, a way to find meaning and purpose in a world that often felt chaotic and uncertain. And it had given them hope, the knowledge that even in the darkest of times, there was always the promise of new growth and new beginnings, the endless cycle of life and death and rebirth that made the world go round. As the last of the summer crops began to fade and the first hints of autumn began to appear in the changing leaves and the crisp, cool air, Arthur found himself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. The way that a simple patch of earth had grown into something so much bigger and more beautiful than he ever could have imagined. And as he looked out over the neighborhood, at the riot of color and life that had sprung up in every yard and every garden, he knew that the seeds he had planted all those months ago had taken root in more than just the soil. They had taken root in the hearts and minds of his friends and neighbors, in the incredible community that had grown up around him like a garden in full bloom. And he knew that, no matter what challenges the future might bring, they would weather them together, armed with the strength and the resilience and the love that had brought them this far. For in the end, that was what the garden was all about. Not just the plants and the fruits and the vegetables, but the incredible power of connection and community, the way that even the tiniest seed could grow into something strong and enduring and beautiful. And as Arthur made his way back to his own little corner of the world, his heart full of gratitude and joy, he knew that he had found his true calling, his way to make a difference in the world and to leave a legacy that would endure long after he was gone. For he had planted the seeds of change, of hope and love and possibility. And now, as he watched them grow and flourish in the hearts and lives of those around him, he knew that the best was yet to come, that the garden of his life would continue to bloom and thrive for years to come. With a smile on his face and a spring in his step, Arthur turned his face to the sun, ready to embrace whatever new adventures and opportunities the future might hold. For he knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would always have his garden, his little piece of paradise in the midst of the city. And he would always have his incredible community of friends and neighbors, the people who had become like family to him, who had helped him to grow and thrive and find his place in the world. And that, he knew, was the greatest gift of all. Chapter 12. Conclusion. The morning sun cast a warm, golden glow over the neighborhood, illuminating the vibrant tapestry of colors that had sprung up in every yard and garden. As Arthur stepped out onto his front porch, he couldn't help but marvel at the incredible transformation that had taken place over the past year. Where once there had been only a few scattered patches of green, now there was a veritable explosion of life and color, with flowers of every hue and variety dancing in the gentle breeze. Tulips and daffodils nodded their bright heads in cheerful greeting, while fragrant hyacinths and delicate crocuses added their own sweet notes to the symphony of spring. As Arthur made his way down the street, his steps slow and measured as he savored the beauty around him, he was struck by the sense of community and connection that seemed to permeate the very air. Everywhere he looked, he saw neighbors out and about, tending to their gardens, or simply enjoying the lovely weather. There was old Mrs. Jameson, proudly displaying her prize-winning roses to a group of admiring passers-by. And there were the Nguyen kids, giggling with delight, as they helped their mother plant a butterfly garden in their front yard. As he passed each house, Arthur was greeted with waves and smiles, with calls of, "Looking good, Arthur," and "Can't wait to see what you've got planned for the summer." It was clear that his little gardening club had taken on a life of its own, spreading joy and beauty throughout the neighborhood like a wildflower in full bloom. But it wasn't just the physical transformation that struck Arthur as he walked. It was the way that people seemed to have blossomed and grown alongside their gardens, their faces alight with a newfound sense of purpose and belonging. He thought of Jake, the young writer who had once been so lost and adrift, but who now greeted him with a confident grin and a hearty handshake, his eyes shining with the joy of a man who had found his calling. And he thought of Ava, the teenage girl who had once been so sullen and withdrawn, but who now bounded up to him with a smile, eager to show off her latest nature photography project. Everywhere he looked, Arthur saw the seeds of change that he had helped to plant, the tiny shoots of hope and possibility that had taken root and flourished in the hearts of his neighbors. As he rounded the corner onto his own street, Arthur was surprised to see a small crowd gathered outside the community center, their voices raised in laughter and chatter. Curious, he made his way over, only to be greeted with a rousing cheer as he approached. "There he is, the man of the hour," called out Rashid, clapping Arthur heartily on the back. "We were just talking about you, Arthur, about how much you've done for this community, and how grateful we are to have you as our fearless leader." Arthur felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment, but he couldn't help but smile at the outpouring of affection from his friends and neighbors. As he looked around at the sea of smiling faces, he felt a lump form in his throat, a sudden rush of emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. "I don't know what to say," he managed at last, his voice thick with feeling. "I never set out to be a leader or to change anyone's life. I just wanted to share my love of gardening, to help people discover the joy and beauty that I had found in the simple act of nurturing a seed." But as he spoke, Arthur realized that his words were only half true. Because while he may not have set out to change lives, that was exactly what he had done. Through his patience and his kindness, his wisdom and his generosity, he had helped to cultivate a community of people who were stronger, more resilient, and more connected than they had ever been before. And as he looked out at the sea of faces before him, each one shining with the light of possibility and potential, he knew that he had been given an incredible gift, the chance to make a real difference in the world, one garden at a time. As the crowd began to disperse, chattering excitedly about the upcoming spring planting season, Arthur found himself drawn into conversation after conversation, each one a testament to the incredible impact that the gardening club had had on the lives of its members. There was Lily, her eyes shining with pride as she shared the news of her latest academic achievements. "I never would have had the courage to go back to school if it wasn't for you, Arthur," she said softly, her hand resting gently on his arm. "You showed me that it's never too late to chase your dreams, to plant the seeds of a better future." And there was Sophie, her face alight with excitement as she described her plans for a new art installation in the community garden. "I want to create something that celebrates the beauty and resilience of nature," she explained, her hands sketching shapes in the air. "Something that reminds us of the incredible power of growth and renewal, even in the darkest of times." As Arthur listened to their stories, his heart swelled with a sense of pride and gratitude. He had always known that gardening had the power to transform lives, but seeing it happen before his very eyes, witnessing the incredible ripple effect of his own small actions, was a feeling beyond words. And as he made his way back to his own little corner of the world, his step a bit lighter and his heart a bit fuller, he knew that he had found his true calling, his way to leave a mark on the world that would endure long after he was gone. In the days and weeks that followed, Arthur watched with joy and wonder as the neighborhood continued to thrive and grow, each new blossom and shoot a testament to the incredible power of community and connection. He saw it in the way that people came together to help each other out, whether it was lending a hand with a tricky planting project or bringing over a freshly baked loaf of bread to welcome a new neighbor. He saw it in the way that the children played together in the streets, their laughter ringing out like music in the warm spring air, a reminder of the incredible resilience and vitality of the human spirit. And he saw it in the way that his own life had been transformed, the once quiet hours of his retirement now filled with purpose and meaning, with the joy of sharing his passion with others and watching them grow and flourish under his guidance. As the spring planting season reached its peak and the gardens began to burst with life and color, Arthur knew that it was time to pass the torch, to entrust the future of the club to the capable hands of the next generation. He had always known that he wouldn't be able to lead forever, that there would come a time when he would need to step back and let others take the reins. And as he looked out at the incredible community that had grown up around him, he knew that he was leaving the club in the best possible hands. There was Lily, of course, with her passion and her dedication, her incredible ability to inspire and motivate others. And there was Rashid, with his quiet wisdom and his deep understanding of the healing power of plants. And Sophie and Luis, with their creativity and their vision, their ability to see the beauty and potential in even the most unlikely of places. Together, they would continue to grow and nurture the club, to plant the seeds of change and watch them blossom into something truly extraordinary. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a soul at peace, Arthur made his way to the community center one last time, ready to say his goodbyes and to pass on the legacy that he had built. As he stood before the gathered crowd, his voice shaking with emotion, he spoke of the incredible journey that had brought them all together, of the way that a simple patch of earth had grown into something so much bigger and more beautiful than he ever could have imagined. He spoke of the challenges they had faced, the obstacles they had overcome, and the incredible resilience and determination that had seen them through. And he spoke of the future, of the incredible possibilities that lay ahead, the seeds of hope and potential that were even now lying dormant in the soil, waiting for the right moment to burst forth into the light. "My friends," he said, his eyes shining with tears of joy and gratitude, "I want you to know that this is not the end, but only the beginning. The seeds we have planted together, the love and care we have poured into this earth, will continue to grow and thrive long after we are gone." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the sea of faces before him, each one etched with the love and respect that he had earned through his tireless dedication and unwavering compassion. "So let us go forth from this place, armed with the strength and the courage that we have found in each other. Let us continue to plant the seeds of change, to nurture and tend them with all the love and care that we can muster. And let us never forget the incredible power of community, the way that even the smallest act of kindness can grow into something truly extraordinary." As he stepped down from the podium, Arthur was engulfed in a sea of hugs and tears, of laughter and love that seemed to fill the very air itself. And as he made his way out into the bright spring sunshine, his heart full to bursting with the joy and the wonder of it all, he knew that he had truly found his place in the world, his way to make a difference that would endure long after he was gone. In the days and weeks and months that followed, Arthur watched with pride and amazement as the neighborhood continued to thrive and grow, each new season bringing with it a fresh crop of wonders and delights. He saw the way that the gardens continued to flourish under the loving care of their dedicated tenders, the way that each new harvest brought with it a sense of accomplishment and joy that seemed to radiate out into the world like the warmth of the sun. He saw the way that the children grew and changed, their minds and hearts expanding with each new lesson learned, each new discovery made in the rich, loamy soil of the earth. And he saw the way that the community itself continued to evolve and adapt, weathering the storms and the challenges that life threw its way with grace and resilience, and an unshakable belief in the power of growth and renewal. But perhaps the greatest joy of all came in the quiet moments, the small, everyday miracles that seemed to unfold before his very eyes. It was the sight of a tiny seedling pushing its way up through the soil, its delicate leaves unfurling in the gentle spring breeze. It was the sound of a child's laughter ringing out across the garden, a reminder of the incredible resilience and vitality of the human spirit. And it was the feeling of a hand slipping into his own, the gentle squeeze of fingers that said more than words ever could about the incredible bond of love and connection that had grown up between them all. As Arthur sat in his garden one evening, the golden light of the setting sun casting a warm glow over the earth, he couldn't help but marvel at the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. He thought of all the lives that had been touched by the simple act of planting a seed, of the incredible ripple effect that had spread out from his own small corner of the world to touch hearts and minds in ways he never could have imagined. And he thought of the future, of the incredible possibilities that lay ahead, the seeds of hope and potential that were even now lying dormant in the soil, waiting for the right moment to burst forth into the light. With a smile on his face and a song in his heart, Arthur rose from his seat and made his way back inside, ready to embrace whatever new adventures and opportunities the future might hold. For he knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would always have his garden, his little piece of paradise in the midst of the city. And he would always have his incredible community of friends and neighbors, the people who had become like family to him, who had helped him to grow and thrive and find his place in the world. And that, he knew, was the greatest gift of all, the true harvest of a lifetime spent in service to the earth and to the incredible people who called it home. As he crossed the threshold into his house, Arthur paused for a moment, his hand resting on the weathered wood of the door frame. He closed his eyes, breathing in the rich, earthy scent of the garden, feeling the warmth and comfort of the life he had built wash over him like a gentle wave. And then, with a final glance out at the garden that had started it all, he stepped inside, ready to embrace the next chapter of his incredible journey. For he knew that, no matter where the road might take him, he would always have the love and the strength and the incredible, unshakable spirit of the garden to guide him, to help him weather any storm and emerge stronger and more beautiful on the other side. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a soul at peace, Arthur closed the door behind him, ready to face whatever the future might hold with courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to the earth and all its wonders. The garden had taught him so much, had given him so many gifts that he could never fully repay. But he knew that he would spend the rest of his days trying, planting seeds of kindness and hope wherever he went, nurturing the incredible potential that lay within every heart and every soul. For in the end, that was what life was all about. Not the harvest itself, but the love and care that went into every moment, every small act of nurturing and tenderness that helped to make the world a little bit brighter, a little bit more beautiful, one day at a time. And as Arthur drifted off to sleep that night, his dreams filled with visions of lush green gardens and laughing children, he knew that he had truly found his calling, his way to make a difference in the world that would endure long after he was gone. It was a legacy of love, a testament to the incredible power of growth and renewal, and the enduring beauty of a life lived in service to something greater than oneself. And it was a gift that he would cherish always, a reminder of the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment, and the endless possibilities that lay ahead, waiting to be discovered, one seed at a time.